Welcome to a dialogue on accountability in the digital age. A dialogue with our global multi-stakeholder community, representing national and local governments, international policymakers, civil society, NGOs, the ICT industry, as well as other relevant organizations and institutes.
Okay. Hi everybody, my name is Arthur van der Wees. I'm one of the board members of the Institute for Accountability in the Digital Age. With the backdrop here, the Peace Palace. And with me today is Boris Koprivnikar from Slovenia. Boris, welcome. Boris has been one of the speakers at our first summit a few years ago. He was then the Deputy Prime Minister, Minister of Public Administration, Republic of Slovenia. And currently he is the founder and working under the brand Singular. So welcome, Boris. Good to have you with us.
Hello. Nice to be with you.
So Boris, we're going to have a dialogue, try to avoid the interview approach. But I was really interested to hear from you the word singular. I really like that, sustainable, inclusive solutions for circular growth. So what is that about?
Well, Arthur, I always enjoy talks with you, and I hope that this one will be one of those. And when you ask about the singular, it's something that really, I believe, represents the way how I work always, not only as a singular company. So it's whatever we build have to be sustainable, because we're not building something for today and tomorrow, but something that will last. That's very important. And if you want something last, it have to be inclusive. If it's built only from one or another, if it's not joint co-creation, then it will not be sustainable. You have to not only include, but co-create with all the stakeholders that will be attached by the system. And if you do this, then you have a good ground for circular, sustainable, constant, manageable growth of any system. It can be or company or city or a country or even region. And these are principles that I am always following. And this is also let's say, the ethical part of my company.
Yeah, very good. I totally agree with you on that. And but at the same time, not a lot of companies do it. They're still generally focused on their own profitability, mostly short term. But let's hope that we get more of, we can inspire the others to do the same way that you are doing and I'm doing as well. So another person that does or try to do the same is the President of the European Union, Ursula von der Leyen, that launched her program last year for the next 4 years at least, regarding the future of Europe and its friends and allies, which is basically more green, more digital, and more resilience. And so resilience is climate resilience, it's social resilience, it's cyber resilience, it's quite a lot. So those three, the triangle is, I think, quite a nice way of trying to structure it. And it looks quite well like they were inspired by the name of your company.
Maybe, but when you mentioned the European Union, European Commission, and their line of work, it's something that's very close to me from the let's say, ethical point of view. It's also why European space for living in is, by my opinion, the space that I really feel comfortable with, because I'm respected as a person, with my personal needs. I'm not only a tool in, let's say, maybe some wider society, because European society starts with individual. I'm not only a production mean to make profit for me or for the owners. So that's why these settings are very important. And other companies that you said that maybe are too focused on short-term goals, I do believe, and I'm optimistic about it, that companies one by another really understand that if they will not contribute to the society, on long term, they will not be successful. So it's not only something that you do because you're a nice guy. It's something that you need to do because it's part of the development business strategy. And these green, digital, resilience pillars of the development of the European Union, it's very logical, very reasonable. If we don't protect the environment that we are living in, we will live in worse and worse environment. And we don't want this for ourselves. We don't want this for our kids. Digital is not some industry layer. Digital is not something that's nice to have. If we are really sincere about the digitalization, this is the language that we talk. This is the writing that we can read. And everything is based on digital. So if you develop digital environment, trust in the solution, technical perfection, and so on, then the whole society, the business, the academia, everything will work much better. So it's very reasonable to focus on digital development, but not only in sense of making profit, but in sense of developing community based on very effective and very good digital tools. And of course, you need to be resilient. If you crush at any crisis, at any movements on the market and so on, then, well, you are not stable. And if you are not stable, you cannot develop very fast. And the crisis, the problems, social, economical, medical crisis like we are in the middle of one now and so on, they will always come. They will always come. So we need to build, and with digital tools, we have perfect tools, something that we can be resilient to any kind of crisis and take them as another kick for development, not another problem for falling back. That's my view.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. So indeed, more green is a horizontal, same as circular and sustainable. Digital is a horizontal, resilient is a horizontal. And meanwhile, most governments and also by either local, national, regional are organized vertically. Is that one of the reasons why we're not grasping, with our ethics or behavior or responsibilities and of course, demonstrating that we are accountable?
It is, and we have a disproportion in what's really how today's societies are functioning and how today's governments are functioning, because today's governments were designed or built or developed in some other environment. So now we are facing the let's say political, I have a few experiences in that field. In political sense, the problem that we have managing board of the company that already changed, but the managing board is still the same. So the problem is that today everything is basically, okay, horizontal or at least totally interconnected, interconnected. And there is not finances, health, education, like silo structures that can independently manage this area. Everything is interconnected. And also, when it comes to the governmental question, what I believe is need that we turn, as we did in more successful companies, dividing the areas between different ministries or resource into role playing, so that we know who is innovator, who is the stabilizer, who is what roles do we play. And I like this analogy that we say, if we have a basketball team which plays with the only on the field, there is no opposite team. You can say, now we will do this kind of attack and score. But when you have opposite team, then you never know what's happening. So then you have one fast player, one tall player, and they are playing the roles and they react on the situation. And the problem of today's government is that they react slower, much slower than technology development is offering us changes in the society. So the speed of reaction have to be changed, and it's only through the role playing and responsibilities and not dividing the areas in silo structure.
Yeah, so we need to perhaps more talk about organization and not about governing. Perhaps we need to talk about a little more about orchestration, like, orchestration with a director there you need leadership. And I think what you mentioned on the integration, I call it the catalyst. You add those catalysts to a particular challenge, and you add something to it. So for instance, in smart communities or smart society, you combine basically the combination of green and digital towards a human-centric or societal-centric approach. And can you give some examples on that, perhaps? Because I know you're working in that domain.
Well, it's when you talk about you said leadership and how to run the complex system. Again, if the system is simple, you can define the process and control it. When the system becomes complex, it's impossible to control all the processes. So then you need leadership, you need values, and you need coordination. And what will happen tomorrow, I don't know, but I do know that I will decide based on specific set of values. I know that I will follow the lead to the common goal, and this is how the complex system can function. And for example, what we do in any approach with the smart community, smart city, or smart government projects, I always use this so-called 4-pillar strategy and always start with the organization and coordination. My question is not what kind of a technology you would like to use. That comes on the end. My question is always, who is coordinating? Who is deciding? Who is the leader? What are the values? This is the organizational part. Then you have process part. Of course, you need to know how you work. Can you connect and improve the processes? The output of one process go directly in another. This is optimization, to be rational and to be more productive. The third part definitely is data. Data is, as we say, the fuel, but basically the data is the key asset that any community, country, city, or even person have. Is what's happening with my data. I don't care about the software solutions. I care where my key asset is, where my gold mine is, data. And then on the end, you ask what kind of a cloud or communication technology you will use. But first you have to solve these problems. And this is something that sets the community to be smart in the future, if you act in that way.
Yeah, totally agree. And indeed, Commissioner Breton, and you're from the European Commissioner, from the Commission, was asked when he started, what is the focus, the priority you're going to add on a lot of lobbying on all kind of different technologies. And he said, no, the common denominator is data. And it's both an asset as well as a means. It can be used sustainable. You don't need to always use the data itself. You can use the attributes. So basically the information coming out of the data. And so all kind of different ways to use it and not only mine it in, let's say, the old school way. I think it's definitely one of the catalysts it was already for the last decade, but it's good to see that European Union and Europe and other places in the world are using data for good more and more. Of course, when you talk about the processes, every organization or sector thinks it's very special, whether it's public administration or electricity, energy or mobility. They all think they can do it by themselves because they're very special, so they need special attention, special systems. But you have been working already a long time ago and still working in the concept of the multi-cloud architecture, and that could be another catalyst to try to leave everybody to what they're good at, still have a common denominator where of course data is there, but it's also a non-vendor lock-in and a vendor neutral approach. And really interested to hear a little bit from you what you did and what you see what we could do on that perspective.
Okay, you mentioned two very important things. First, that development based on data, and my let's say slogan that I'm always following is don't log the data, look the data. So that means if you how we usually react is I don't know what you should use my data, so I will not give it to you. And then you explain and research and so on. But I say, we turned also on the governmental level with the change of legislation, we turned this question and said, the only data that it's not open is data that's closed because of a personal interest of protection or business interest of protection or governmental interest of protection. And if there is no such of those three reasons that data cannot be shared, I treat it as public good. I say, if it does not harm, if I have the data, I can put it somewhere that anyone else can take it. That's very, very simply said. And on that base, we also built that multi-cloud strategy that basically worked in the field that all governmental data is collected in one governmental cloud. That means that different government ministries, resources, agencies, public institutions can freely, according to of course, according to rights to access to the data, but they can technically freely use the data, share the data, and for each data set, you know who owns it, who manage it, and who can access to data and use it freely. And then you avoid this problem that you have always between two bodies, explain why I would need your data. And then usually it's reasonable. Say, okay, fine, you have a reasonable, a good reason to use my data, but why to explain? You just park the data in the cloud, which is protected, which is very well monitored, but the data is accessible. And then the second level of cloud is so-called public or hybrid cloud that's open to local communities, public institutions, schools, hospitals, and everything else, that you have all the data of those institutions, again, a platform and access point to share it. That does not mean that all data is physically in one server part, but it's accessible from one point. And then the last one is research and development cloud. That means that any new solutions you can put on that cloud, you can test it on virtual data, and if it works, you just turn the plug on and it's already in production basically next day. And this is the way how you can then build very successful services to support the citizens, because you can take the data from all the agencies. Just one example, when we introduced the service for lending the social transfers, where you need to check, okay, I'm asking a social benefit, and you need to see, do I have a car, do I have a house, do I have investments, and so on. And this is complicated, and no one checked. And then you see guys with the social benefits driving around with the 100K worth cars with the social benefits, and people were really angry about it. And with this data interconnecting and checking all the governmental accessible databases, we saved over 100 million per year on social benefits, and it's much more fair. It's much better system. And the other system is, for example, that in our case, you can get a tax announcement pre-filled from government. And in 98%, basically, you just look it, and if you don't have any complaints, you do nothing. It's done, because they have all the data. But you need to take the data from the different ministries, from the financial institutions, and so on. And this is how this data accessibility can improve the services, the quality of life, the better monitored business systems, if you have it basically in one place, or reachable in one place. And also you mentioned vendor lock-in. If you own the data, you do it. But if you really can take your ownership whenever you want, then you can easily change your software provider, because you gave your data set to other software provider. And if they don't lock your data, this is the best way how to find the vendor lock-in, which is usually very, very big problem in the public sector or all over.
Yeah, so you touch a lot of topics. One is I hear that a public administration that was designed to be a service provider can actually be a service provider in an efficient way with use of digital. And of course, it can do it in a sustainable, green way, and indeed make sure it's resilient. So I think it ticks all the boxes. don't lock the data, look the data definitely should be on everybody's mind, whatever they do. And it's about control. It's about access and control indeed, and not about who owns it, but about who has control. And that definitely gives a lot of room to maneuver. And the multi-cloud structure that you described very briefly basically provides for cloud federation. And that, that's one of those topics the European Commission is working on as well. And one of the examples of cloud federation is Gaia-X, even though Gaia-X does, in my point of view, even less than what you already have accomplished. So while some people are still talking, and we are part of that dialogue as well, by the way. It's very good to see that you've already been working already for a while, I think about 5 to 6 years already. So, and there's probably a lot of learnings and lessons learned that others could take in, and probably you would be happy to share, right?
Definitely. I'm always happy to share whatever we learned that works, and also happy to share whatever we learned that does not work. Because
absolutely. That's the most interesting always. Yeah.
We are part of the same society community. So why don't share? Why don't cooperate and co-create and be inclusive, as we said?
Yeah. Boris, on accountability. Generally, people by accountability think about liability or the forensic side of it. So when things go wrong, you say either sorry, or you say you have an improvement plan. You say you will never do it again. But I divide accountability in basically 4 domains. One is the holistic domain, so that's the catch-all. But then there's more the in a stream side. Before you do something, you think about it, you do it by design. While you act, you can pivot, you can monitor, you can steer, and then after. And after is also, of course, to be able to explain what you did and why perhaps sometimes things went wrong. And also, when necessary, you can defend yourself, but hopefully that's not necessary. So the 3 ones before, during, and after, and the holistic one is basically the overall accountability. Where do you think we could, we should focus on, and what makes sense to do?
Well, first, we as a people are made in the way that we will never use something that we don't trust. And the trust is, for me, keyword. To be trusted, you need to be trustworthy. So you had to, what you said with the accountability, with all 4 layers, is basically building a long-term system that people will trust and use the whole digital and also interconnected governing systems, if they will trust it. And if there is trust in the society, if there is a trust in the systems and technology, if there is trust in the decision makers, if there is trust in our vision where we are going, then this society will develop faster, even if I'm not a preacher of a fast development for any price. No, but it will constantly circular develop, and it will be a good place to live in. Because whenever there is a lack of accountability, lack of trust, there are conflicts. And whenever a conflicts, you use energy for solving conflicts. And whatever energy, and with that I mean also public sources, what you do, what kind of added value you produce. If you spend it for a conflict, you don't spend it for development. So it is a very important point, and I would say that also your institute is one of the places where we can get the knowledge of how to be trustworthy, how to build accountability. And this is something that even politicians on any level, on country or city level, cannot say, this is technological, I don't understand it. No, this is not technological. This is very, very human-like and very crucial. And this is what our relations are based on. And this is how you can basically measure the quality of the society that you're living in.
Yeah, Boris, I agree. Thanks for the kind words, but totally agree. I think you said once a long time ago, perhaps 3 years ago, that we have mankind knowledge concentrated in the palm of our hands. So I think we're more powerful. We have more brain power combined with the people that want to help out, the like-minded people, than ever before. So I'm also quite optimistic, even though on a daily basis you see a lot of bad news coming around. But it's good that you are on board with us, and I would like to thank you. But before I do end this, perhaps you have one more things, a couple of things you want to share to the people watching.
Well, I would just say that digitalization, or if I connect to the words that you said before, we have a unique situation in the whole humankind history that accumulated knowledge of whole generation before us is now on the mobile phone, and this is what really speeds up the development. And speeding up the development makes an additional very tricky point. If you develop too fast, and if you want to regulate the results of development in the traditional way, it's not working. This is what we talked before about the government. So accountability, trustworthiness are the ways of running the complex system to maintain and to stay stable and reliable. And I would just say for the end that digitalization was always my let's say my one layer of my work, because there is no similar such a powerful tool as a digital solutions. So use it wise, use it ethically, use it for the purpose of our missions and goals, and then we can have very sustainable, accountable, trustworthy society that we will enjoy to live in and enjoy the fruits of digitalization and not being threatened by the technology.
Well, thank you very much for your very wise words. It was a pleasure again. And perhaps we do another session later on a certain topic, who knows. But for now, thank you very much, and I hope to see you soon.
It was my pleasure, and pleasure talking with you as always. Thank you.
Thank you.